Welcome to PLUSone, the series where each month I look at the free games on PlayStation Plus and tell you if they're worth the download. After all, the games may be free, but your time is valuable. Our lineup for July includes 4 PS4 games: Heavy Rain, Absolver, Extreme Exorcism, and Space Overlords, with Heavy Rain being our focus today. Originally released on the PS3 back in 2010, this David Cage game was brought to the PS4 in 2016, shortly after its spiritual sequel, Beyond Two Souls, received its own PS4 port. Like Beyond was back in May, I'm sure Heavy Rain is free this month as an attempt to push people to buy Quantic Dream's newest game, Detroit Become Human. Since this is a David Cage game, you already know going in that we're dealing with a choice-driven cinematic adventure game set along an insane narrative. Heavy Rain in particular has a place firmly in many people's hearts though. Is that place earned, or are we going to be breaking through some nostalgia today? More importantly, is Heavy Rain worth 10 hours of your time and over 30 gigabytes on your hard drive? Let's dive right in and find out. Heavy Rain puts you in the shoes of 4 different characters, with our main protagonist being Ethan Mars. Ethan is your typical upper-middle-class dad. He loves his 2 sons and his wife very much, but sometimes he's forgetful and loses his son of them all.
Jason! 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 Jason!
Jason!
Oh boy. Yeah, Jason dies in that car accident, and Ethan is sent into a 6-month-long coma. After that trauma, naturally Ethan and his wife divorce, splitting custody of their remaining son, Sean. Ethan's relationship with Sean has strained as well, with Sean becoming a quieter child ever since losing his older brother. Right as Ethan gets Sean to open up a bit more again after playing at the park, Ethan blacks out, coming to several hours later across town, and Sean is missing. This is where the other characters come into play. In between small chunks of sub-chapters that feel pretty similar to Beyond's short chapter structure, you'll jump between the lives of Ethan, Private Detective Scott Shelby, FBI Agent Norman Jaden, or as he pronounces it, Naman Jaden, and reporter Madison Page. All 4 journeys revolve around the Origami Killer, a serial killer that's murdered several young boys around Sean's age in the Philadelphia area over the last couple years. One of the big things that made Heavy Rain stand out when it first released is that this game has an insane level of player choice, with nearly 24 different ending possibilities. Something as simple as what you make for Sean's dinner, or even if you let him stay up late on a school night, could have drastic effects on the later parts of the game. Moreover, any of the characters in Heavy Rain can die depending on your choices, or even depending on how you respond to QuickTime events. Even a nothing decision has a butterfly effect, so no 2 playthroughs will be alike. Let's jump to those QuickTime events for a moment. They are, well, bad. Really, the control in general is pretty rough. You don't move with just the left stick like you would expect from any normal game. No, you've got to hold down R2 and then press the left stick, silly. Interacting with objects isn't a button press, instead you'll move the right stick in the corresponding direction. That, of course, means that the right stick doesn't control the camera. Instead, you'll press L1 to swap between a few preset camera angles when available, hoping that one of them is half decent. And last, but certainly not least, since this was a middle-era PS3 game, of course there's a ton of shaking your controller. Now, don't get me wrong, at points this game's cinematic vibe absolutely nails it, and you're blown away when it does. However, like many of Quantic Dream's games, sometimes the focus on cinematic experience leads to a weaker gameplay experience. For example, it's hilarious making Ethan do mundane things in an incredibly dramatic way, but that wears thin once you start wanting to progress and he controls like a tank in mud. The last thing I want to touch on is the game's production values. As a quick remaster of a mid-generation PS3 game, Heavy Rain quite clearly looks like, well, a mid-generation PS3 game. Beyond fared much better with its cleanup than Heavy Rain did, with the latter often having some muddy textures, some very weak facial animations, and so on. A few pre-rendered scenes even seem to be straight up taken from the PS3 version, rather than remastered separately. All of that I can look past without much issue. What I just cannot look past is the voice acting. A good chunk of this game's voice cast are native French speakers, since Quantic Dream is a French developer. Pretty much the entire voice cast are unknown actors as well, and, well, there's a reason that Quantic Dream pushed to get names like Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe for their next game. This means that quite a few characters have noticeable French accents, which in itself is fine, until you realize that these people aren't very good actors either. The line delivery is pretty consistently off, and while it makes for some laughs in certain scenes, it certainly diminishes the impact in others. The only thing I really needed in this game to sell me on the narrative was strong voice work, and that's just not here. Pair all of that up with David Cage's brand of poor directing and ham-fisted writing, and you get a game that, like Beyond, is unintentionally hilarious like a B-movie. Now, that said, unlike Beyond, I feel there's still some promise here beyond just playing it to laugh at it. For all its problems, Heavy Rain still did capture me. It kept me interested, and it kept me hooked. It had no right to with all of the problems that are present here, but it did. For that reason, I think it's definitely worth checking out, so I would say +1 it to your collection. Even if you don't love it, there are a lot of ways to make it fun. Turn it into a drinking game with your buddies perhaps, or just play it together and have a good time. I at least think that the mystery element of who is the origami killer will keep you playing it during those very dull moments when you're thinking of changing back to a more trusted game. Heavy Rain will last you about 10 hours, unless you go for the platinum, in which case you'll probably run yourself close to double that. If you do appreciate the story in Heavy Rain, I don't know that I would recommend you go for that platinum, as seeing every possibility might ruin your individual experience. Let me know what you think about Heavy Rain or Quantic Dream games in general in the comments down below, and while you're down there, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more PS Plus reviews and much more.